Hey friends, welcome back to the channel and to yet another study with me / day in the life video. This time I've got the day off work and so I plan to spend all day being super productive, so we'll see how that goes. I get up at 7 AM and for 20 minutes I lie in bed doing absolutely nothing. Then I force myself out of bed and go for a wee, have a shower and brush my teeth. All three at the same time actually, because, productivity and stuff. At 7:30 I make the terrible mistake of lying back down in my bed and end up reading random articles on my phone for half an hour, and then at 8 AM I decide to stop being a complete waste man and get up to start the day with some coffee and of course to tidy my desk. At 8:25 I am ready to start work, but I procrastinate by phoning up British Telecom to upgrade my internet speed. I figure that now I'm rich and famous thanks to these internet videos, I deserve more than the frankly third world upload speed of 3 megabits per second. At this point I make a mental note to remove that deeply problematic phrase from my vocabulary. At 8:40, having done all I can to procrastinate for about 2 hours since getting up, I play my Spotify Study With Me playlist of instrumental bangers and make a start on Lecture 5 of Cardiovascular Physiology. This lecture is all about the various factors that determine cardiac output, and here some of the concepts are a bit tricky. As usual, I take advantage of the screen real estate on my ridiculously big monitor, and so I've got the lecture notes, lecture PowerPoint, and my own notes in Notion open in different splits. As I'm going through the lecture notes and the PowerPoint, I'm asking myself at every single junction, does this make sense, firstly? And secondly, could I explain this to a 5-year-old? When I come across stuff that doesn't immediately make sense, I mentally grapple with it for a while, sometimes hopping onto Google and seeing if I can find any more information about that topic. For example, I struggle a bit with the concept of mean systemic filling pressure, and so I follow up some of the references in the lecture notes, and stumble across a paper that was actually written by my old physiology supervisor at Cambridge University. Dr. Barnes and his colleagues in 1986 did some experiments on anesthetized cats that contributed to our understanding of how splanchnic and cardiac sympathetic nerves affect the amount of blood that's pumped out by the heart in each heartbeat. I have a brief fanboy moment when I discover this, and then I go through the rest of the lecture. And as I'm going through the lecture, I'm doing my usual thing of writing a few things down in Notion, but making sure to hide the notes underneath a question, so that when I'm looking through this lecture again, I'll be forced to try and active recall the notes rather than just passively read them. This whole process of grappling with a topic and doing internet research until I'd be comfortable explaining it to a 5-year-old, for conceptually difficult things, this can take absolutely ages, and that's partly why I'm not a huge fan of things like the Pomodoro method, because sometimes it takes me a lot longer than 25 minutes to grapple with a concept for long enough to really understand it. Anyway, this particular session lasts around 45 minutes before I sense myself losing concentration, and so I take a quick break where I clean some of the kitchen and make myself a cup of Moroccan mint tea in this shiny new teapot that I got from Japan. At 9:45, I switch my fancy-ass desk to standing mode and I resume work. It takes me around 25 minutes to get through lecture number 6, which is conceptually simpler than lecture 5, and so it takes less time to understand all of the stuff. As usual, before starting reading the lecture notes, I'm writing down the structure of the lecture, with the various subheadings that the lecturer used, so that I've got a big picture understanding of what's going on in this lecture before diving into the weeds. Again, my notes are fairly minimalistic, and for the most part I'm hiding them beneath active recall questions that I've written for myself. For example, when I'm reading about sympathetic efferents, I can tell that remembering this stuff will really help my understanding of the whole topic, and so I turn the paragraphs in the lecture notes into 4 questions, and I put the answers, or the relevant bits from the lecture, underneath those toggles so that they're not visible by default. At this point it's 10 past 10 in the morning, and so I decide to take a break. I grab a snack and sit on the sofa to do some #productive procrastination and watch some videos on Skillshare. I've started watching Simon Van Buey's class about how to build a successful writing habit. Writing is a big part of making good YouTube videos, and I think it would be cool to write a book at some point, and so I'm trying to learn stuff about that whole process while writing every week for my weekly email newsletter, which you can subscribe to with a link down below. On Skillshare, I've also got my own online class on how to edit videos, and another one I'd recommend is my friend Thomas Frank's Productivity Masterclass. If you like, you can sign up to a free 2-month trial of Skillshare with a link in the video description, and after your free trial is up, you can get a premium subscription for less than $10 a month. Even though they sponsor my videos, I still pay for Skillshare each month, and I'm working on some more classes, including one on studying effectively, that you can stay up to date with by following my profile on Skillshare. Anyway, this productive procrastination break ends up being longer than I planned, so that at 11 o'clock I get back to work. I've got 3 lectures left in this cardiovascular physiology series, and I decide that I'm going to bash out all of them in the next hour, which gives me 20 minutes per lecture. This means that rather than making extensive notes, I'm focusing on understanding the content and only writing or screenshotting the bits that are either really important or particularly new to me. A quick point I want to make here is that I think it's useful to convert paragraphs into numbered lists. For example, in our lecture notes, there's a few paragraphs about the different things that happen to ensure that our muscles get enough blood and oxygen when we're exercising. In the lecture notes, they've written it as continuous prose, which is a bit hard to sift through, and so I condensed the lecture notes into a numbered list of points instead, and then I reorganized some of those into an order that makes sense to me. And I nest some extra details using the toggle feature of Notion, which I'm going to make a whole video about at some point. This means that when I'm testing myself, I can say something like, what are the 5 mechanisms that contribute to the maintained phase of exercise hyperemia? And then I can dredge up that information from my brain, which itself strengthens the encoding of that information. And then over time, this information will become ingrained into my knowledge and understanding of the subject. Anyway, because I'm an absolute legend, or so I tell myself, I managed to finish these lectures in around an hour. At this point, it's noon, and I've been up for around 5 hours, and I've done around 2 hours of actual work. This is kind of interesting because the story I've told myself is that I've been studying all morning, but clearly I haven't. This self-delusion is common amongst literally everyone that I know. We all think, ooh, look at me, I've done 8 hours of work today. But then when we actually time it properly, and if we were to screencast ourselves studying, we'd realize that over half of that was probably procrastination of some sort. Oh well. At this point, I order some takeaway on Deliveroo and give myself a 30-minute break to play The Witcher 3 on my Nintendo Switch. This 30-minute break turns into a 50-minute break, and then food arrives, and so I eat while watching random YouTube videos. At 1:20, a solid hour and 20 minutes into what was supposed to be only a 30-minute break, I decide to get back to work and make myself an afternoon coffee to combat the classic postprandial slump. From 1:20 to 2 p.m, I get down to preparing for the physiology supervision that I'll be running that evening. I grab questions that cover the topics we've done this term and chuck them into Keynote so that we can end the supervision with some solid active recall of previous concepts. For each of my teaching sessions, I do have a bank of questions that I put at the end of the presentation that we can work through if we get through the rest of the material quickly. It's also usually quite a fun end to the supervision, and my students are cool because they seem to enjoy being tested in this casual way. After this, I procrastinate a bit by browsing Twitter and replying to emails, and then at 2:20, I grab the guitar and decide to do some practice. Well, it's not really practice because I'm just playing songs that I already know and enjoy playing, but oh well. P.S. If for some reason you want to hear me sing, you can follow me on Instagram where I post videos of me and my friends singing songs sometimes. From 2:35, I run through some of the essay titles that I've set for my students. This week, instead of doing an actual essay, they're preparing presentations on each of their essay titles that they can present to the class, so that everyone learns from everyone else, which is quite wholesome and nice. This is also ideal for me because it means that I don't have to mark essays this week. But I do spend some time looking through their essay titles and working out how I would answer those questions, so that when they're doing the presentation, I might be able to suggest some extra bits that they can add on. At 3:20, I drive over to Girton College, Cambridge for the supervisions. It lasts for around 3 hours, and as an end-of-term treat, we order some pizza from Domino's halfway through. At 7:20, I drive back home, doing some quick errands along the way and refreshing my supply of Muller Corner banana flake yogurt, which is truly heavenly. When I get home, I lounge around for a bit, hang up the laundry, and lie on the sofa, feeling super tired and super unproductive for around an hour. At 9 p.m, I get back on the computer. I have some Huel for dinner because I can't be bothered to cook something, and because 2 takeaways in a day seems a little bit excessive. I think about whether I want to do any more work for the day and decide absolutely not, and to write the rest of the day off. Tomorrow is my first day of work in my new rotation on obstetrics and gynecology, so I decide to have an early night. And so that brings us to the end of this study with me / day in the life video, where there was a fair bit of studying early in the morning and in the early afternoon, and then the rest of the day after my supervision was pure procrastination. Thank you so much for watching, and please sign up to a free trial of Skillshare with the link in the video description because A, it's really good, and B, it really helps support the channel. Have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.